My entire existence, every tiny moment of my living, is totally governed by the concern and supervision of my Thakur's all-encompassing love and care. So, it's impossible for me to strictly objectify sufferings in the sense ordinary people understand or perceive sufferings. When someone suffers, he or she may find it convenient to relate those sufferings to the law of karma. We call it the law of karma, I can't apply the same argument in my case. As I am always enveloped by my Thakur, Ishopanishad says, Isha Vashamidang Sharbang Jatkincha Jagattam Jagat. I know I am fully encapsulated and wrapped within the watch and love of my Thakur. So if at any point of time I am subjected to any suffering at all, it will then no more be a suffering of any sort to me, but a necessity or need that my Thakur has thought best for me. Still, there are some advices my Thakur gave me related how should I react to sufferings of others, and these advices Thakur gave me during my college days, and I find that Nikhilesh Maharaj also wants me to discuss on them too. Look, suffering is quite helpful when you look at suffering from spiritual perspective. Many spiritual journey has indeed started with suffering. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter of the Gita is known as Arjun Bishad Jog, or you may call it the depression jog of Arjun, isn't it? Depression jog of Arjun Bishad Jog. Okay, understood? Now, Arjun is the leader of his army and he is expected to fight for justice for his own people. But when Arjun looks at his opponents, he gets terrified to see on the other side his own loved ones, his very close family members like Bhishma, his beloved teacher like Drona, and so and so. So, Arjun then turns to Krishna, his charioteer, his friend, his guru, and the entire Gita is the explanation of Krishna as to why Arjun should fight. The entire Bhagavad Gita can be seen as a sort of spiritual journey for Arjun and also for those who read and travel through the pages of Gita. So it could be safely said that Arjun's spiritual life begins with depression in particular or suffering in general. The very first experience Arjun had is the experience of tremendous debilitating suffering, and it's through that suffering he opens himself to possibilities that he hadn't imagined or dreamed of before. Now, before the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjun was performing all his duties as a warrior. You will find that he was performing all his duties as a family member and etc. Until this crisis comes when he starts suffering deeply and then his true spiritual life begins. This I found true for many other yogis, yoginis, sannyasis whom I met in my life. Their spiritual life began with their sufferings. So you can safely say that suffering isn't that bad. You will find in the 16th verse of the 7th chapter, Krishna telling Arjun, Chaturvida bhajante mam jana shukritin Arjuna artho jiggashu artharthi gyani cha bharatashav. What is Krishna saying here? Krishna is telling Arjun that 4 kinds of virtuous men worship Krishna. The dissatisfied ones, the seekers through systematic knowledge, I should say, the seekers of wealth and worldly pleasures, and the wise ones. Krishna is telling here that 4 kinds of people call on Krishna or worship Krishna. There are the Arthojan, or those who are in deep sorrow or dejection. Arjun at this moment falls into this category. He is an Arthojan. Then there are the Jiggashu, those who have a sincere inquiry into God or want to realize God. Then there are the Artharthi people. Most of the people you see around belong to this category. This is very common in all religions across the board. They call God for worldly things. Cure me or cure someone close to me from such and such disease. Bless me for my job promotion. Help me to buy that car, or help me in making that girl or boy my girlfriend or boyfriend, etc., etc. Understood? Okay. Now the fourth category is the Gyani, one who has comprehensively realized God and one who instinctively and naturally calls on God without any worldly or spiritual necessity. The call for God that comes from the Gyani is the purest of calls. Just call for call's sake. Just love for love's sake. So, if one wants to categorize these four devotees in accordance with their degree of spiritual elevation, then Gyani comes first, of course, no doubt, followed by Jiggashu, Arti, and the Artharthi. People reach out for God when they are in pain. I often find mails and text messages where monks and nuns ask me to shower them with pain because they find their call for God getting genuine and louder when they are in distress and are undergoing sufferings. Is how do I see these categories in the light of what my Thakur has advised me in relation to sufferings of people of this world? Look, the brand of spirituality I am comfortable dwelling in, I find easy to communicate with you people. I mean to say the Sannyasis and Sannyasinnis. Because most of the Sannyashi I meet are either Jiggashu or Arti. Most of the Samsari people I meet, on the other hand, are Artharthi, of the highest order, I should say. They are so sincerely fastened to their body-mind matrix and ultimately attached securely to what you call samsara, I at times find myself very awkwardly positioned talking to them. This is the problem with those who can safely be labeled as Artharthi. Of course, there are some exceptions, both in the Sannyasi groups and the Samsari groups, but the exceptions are very few and far between. My Thakur has asked me to stay away from mainly this category, that is, I mean to say, the Artharthi people. He told me several times not to indulge in hearing to stories of other people's sorrows. Only when someone is physically sick or ill, I may listen if I am at all willing to. Thakur told me, এখানকার কারোর দুঃখের কথা শুনতে যাবে না, শুধু অসুখ বিসুখ করলে যেতে পারো। Now, a keen spiritual observant knows that all these sufferings which you may confront and experience here are the sufferings related to either your body or your mind. Until and unless you develop the ability to rise above this body-mind complex through spiritual training, these sufferings will continue to hammer and harass you constantly. And then what's the point addressing them, which presumably have no end? Okay? Understood? My Thakur used to say, the world isn't a place for enjoyment, but rather this world is a preparatory field, or a foundational field, I should say, a stepping stone to something much greater, subtler, and larger. But the majority of the Artharthi people here lack the intellect, intelligence, and incisiveness to pierce through the outer shield of the world apparent and dive deeper in order to perceive the greater design of this creation. Throughout their lives, they devote themselves in constant pursuit of those insignificant tiny morsels of enjoyments and ultimately leave this world unhappy and their mission unaccomplished. That's why my Thakur told me, পৃথিবীর মানুষের দুঃখ কষ্ট বোঝার লোক আছে, সূর্যচন্দ্রের দুঃখ কষ্ট বোঝার কেউ নেই, তুমি সূর্যচন্দ্রের দুঃখ বোঝো। What does it mean? It means in this world there are many who can empathize with other people's pains and sufferings, but no one is there to bring relief to the pains and sufferings of those celestial ones like the sun or the moon. My Thakur has told me, my Thakur has asked me to alleviate the distress of the sun and the moon, soothe their agony, and bring comfort to them. To me, the sun or the moon belongs to the highest and the finest stream of the Jiggashu category, and this I call the Bishir Kormi category. You may ask why I don't bracket the sun or the moon into the Gyani category. The reason is that if I am asked to firmly stick to only these four varieties of Arti, Jigashu, or Tharthi and Gyani, as Krishna has mentioned, then the Gyani group falls into the subtlest of all, and they don't need the assistance of Sthula Bustu or gross matter to operate their consciousness, and hence have a tendency not to remain in the material body for a considerable long period. They take resort to or employ the material body only when they undertake a mission. Look here, the difference between a prominent higher level Jigashu and a Gyani lies in what you may call understanding and acceptance. You may understand something, but acceptance is more of an emotional thing. I mean to say something related to heart. That's the reason in spiritual appreciation, Anahata Chakra plays such an important and central role. Somebody may understand the profound spiritual arguments of my Thakur. Even one may be very confident about one's understanding of my Thakur's spiritual ideas, but that absolutely doesn't guarantee that the seeker's Anahata Chakra has unequivocally and unquestionably and at the same time fundamentally and inherently accepted the very truth deep down inside. In my Thakur's Devabhasha, it can be put in this way: Tampara ji saho janati anahata bhi sasarama janatha bajvarati visahum jasaho jisahum. So beautiful, Why it's difficult to accept the final point? Advaita Vedanta claims that the ultimate truth for the faculty of intellect is too simple to appreciate, it is too subtle to understand, and too sublime to believe. So the enlightened being is blessed, with certain characteristics. Yasha Pragga Sthita. In Gita, Krishna also says it as Sthita Pragga. What does it mean? Yasha Pragga Sthita means in the Anahata Chakra, the truth has been unshakably settled in the Anahata Chakra. It is effortless and steadily available. That enlightened being experiences Yasha Ananda Nirantara. He or she experiences unbroken satisfaction and joy of the highest kind. And he or she is Prapancha Pishita Prayasha. This is very important. The world gets almost forgotten to him or her. Prapancha Pishita Prayasha. The world is of course there, but your realization has soared into such a sublime elevation that the world ordinary people are so fond of has little or no value to the enlightened being. In my Thakur's Devabhasha, it can be put it this way: Om paravo ho sarma ho janam jaraso ho sararang veda bharatang janatam unisama parake saradam.